You could address climate change. You could address the human health epidemics that we're seeing. You could address animal welfare, and you could address natural resource conservation. Would you make the change?
But what if people just ate less animal products, like going meatless on Mondays?
When you go meatless on Monday, if you ascribe to that campaign, you're essentially contributing to climate change, pollution, depletion of our planet's resources, and your own health, then on only 6 days of the week instead of 7. You're creating a false justification, clearly a false sense of justification for what you're doing on those other 6 days of the week. So in other words, we really shouldn't be resting on our laurels of what you do right only 1/7 of the time.
You can't be an environmentalist and eat animal products, period. Kid yourself if you want. If you want to feed your addiction, so be it. But don't call yourself an environmentalist.
I knew I had to stop eating all animal products. I wanted to help the planet be sustainable, but I needed to sustain myself. I had doubts about being healthy and not eating meat, dairy, and eggs. All I knew was the standard American diet I grew up on.
Is it even possible to be a healthy vegetarian or vegan?
Is it possible to be a healthy vegetarian or vegan? I became vegan for, 32 years ago now, and I run several miles every day. I go biking 40, 50 miles through the countryside. I work long hours. I feel great. It's nice waking up in a light, trim body every day. And so many of my vegan friends and patients, are just, they're thriving since their transition to a vegan diet. So yes, and I've seen vegan moms go through healthy vegan pregnancies and deliver healthy vegan children and raise them to tall, full-size, intelligent vegan adults. And yes, certainly all the nutrients are there in the plant kingdom to do this. That is correct.
Think anyone should be consuming dairy?
I really don't. When you think about it, the purpose of cow's milk, I did most of my growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. The purpose of cow's milk is to turn a 65-pound calf into a 400-pound cow as rapidly as possible. Cow's milk is baby calf growth fluid. That's what the stuff is. Everything in that white liquid, the hormones, the lipids, the protein, the sodium, the growth factors, the IGF, every one of those is meant to blow that calf up to a great big cow. It wouldn't be there. And whether you pour it on your cereal as a liquid, whether you clot it into yogurt, whether you fit it into cheese, whether you freeze it into ice cream, it's baby calf growth fluid. And women eat it, and it stimulates their tissues, and it gives women breast lumps. It makes the uterus get big, and they get fibroids, and they bleed, and they get hysterectomies, and they need mammograms, and gives guys man boobs. This is, cow's milk is the lactation secretions of a large bovine mammal who just had a baby. It's for baby calves. I tell my patients, go look in the mirror. Do you have big ears? Do you have a tail? Are you a baby calf? If you're not, don't be eating baby calf growth fluid in any level. There's nothing in it people need.
It was a relief to hear I didn't have to eat any animal products to be healthy and even thrive. But I still thought you needed animal manure to grow organic agriculture. It turns out there's an entire movement with people growing food without any animal inputs. I visited Earthworks Urban Farm in Detroit, where they are working with and growing food for the low-income community.
We tend to see ourselves as individuals in a bubble, and forget that we inhabit this land and this earth with other creatures. And so we have to learn how to share more, I guess. Josh here is working on his garden.
You'll be surprised what you can do with what seems to be not a lot of space. About a 4x8. Yeah.
What's your goal this year? How much do you think you can maximize that?
I would push for 100 at least.
100 pounds?
Please.
That's amazing.
So,
the one full year after this was constructed, we doubled our yield to over 14,000 pounds of food.
14,000 pounds?
Yeah.
About how many acres?
About 2.5. So as much food as we produce and we grow, or the earth helps us grow, is we also have to return those nutrients back to the soil. So we like to think of our work as being regenerative, that we're putting as much life-giving substance in the ground as we're taking out.
So just kind of healthier and safer to use vegetarian or vegetable composting and stuff.
Yeah, that's what we found. But also because it takes less time, it's a lot easier to manage.
A lot easier, yeah.
Yeah.
And the soil is just as rich. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only is it organic more compassionate, it's also more efficient. And in a society with this many billions of people, we need to be as efficient as possible. Some people might go back and say, if we embrace this primitive approach of only wild animals everywhere, and we go back to like a hunter-gatherer system, that sounds great. But that was 10 million people on the entire continent. Maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, no one really knows. Today, now, we have what? We have 320 million in the U.S., 25 million in Canada, another 100 and so many million in Mexico. So North America is up to almost 450 million people. Trying to figure out a way to bring animal agriculture in balance with 450 million hungry people is impossible.
This is amazing. I didn't believe it when I first learned it, but 216,000 more people are born to the planet every day. Every day. It's extraordinary. But what's really extraordinary is you need, per day, 34,000 new acres of farmable land. It's not happening.
To feed a person on an all-plant-based vegan diet for a year requires just 1/6 of an acre of land. To feed that same person on a vegetarian diet that includes eggs and dairy requires 3 times as much land. To feed an average U.S. citizen's high-consumption diet of meat, dairy, and eggs requires 18 times as much land. This is because you can produce 37,000 pounds of vegetables on 1.5 acres, but only 375 pounds of meat on that same plot of land. I also learned the comparison doesn't end with land use. A vegan diet produces half as much CO2 as an American omnivore, uses 1/11th the amount of fossil fuels, 1/13th the amount of water, and 1/18th of the amount of land. After adding this all up, I realized I had the choice every single day to save over 1,100 gallons of water, 45 pounds of grain, 30 square feet of forested land, the equivalent of 20 pounds of CO2, and one animal's life every single day.
If we all, as a society, did go vegan and we moved away from eating animal foods and toward a plant-based diet, well, what would happen? If we didn't kill all these cows and eat them, then we wouldn't have to breed all these cows because we're breeding cows and chickens and pigs and fishes. We're breeding them, over and over again, relentlessly. So if we didn't breed them, then we wouldn't have to feed them. If we didn't have to feed them, then we wouldn't have to devote all this land to growing grains and legumes and so forth to feed to them. And so then the forest could come back. Wildlife could come back. The oceans would come back. The rivers would run clean again. The air would come back. Health would return.
Renewable energy infrastructure, such as building solar and wind generators all over our country to reduce climate change. I mean, that's a pretty good idea, but it's projected to take at least 20 years. And at least minimally $18 trillion to develop. It's important to realize that we don't have that long of a time frame. We just talked about how it might be a 3 to 4 year time frame. So we don't really have 20 years, and we really don't have $18 trillion to develop these. So another solution to climate change, we could stop eating animals, and it could be done today. It doesn't have to take 20 years, and it certainly doesn't have to take $18 trillion because it costs nothing.
Some people say, well, let's fix CO2 and then we can worry about methane. Well, that's wrong. It's the other way around. It actually makes sense. Do something about methane because you get a response right away.
Quietly and unmistakably, the most powerful thing that someone can do for the environment. No other lifestyle choice has a farther-reaching and more profoundly positive impact on the planet and all life on Earth than choosing to stop consuming animals and live a vegan lifestyle.
Do you realize 75% of Americans consider themselves to be environmentalists? You don't think we couldn't solve this problem in a heartbeat? I'll tell you what. All we would need is for the environmentalists to live what they profess, and we'd be on a new course in the world.
We will not succeed until we stop animal agriculture. And by succeed, I mean we will not save ecosystems to the extent necessary. We will not have enough food for people around the planet. We will not stop global warming. We will not stop pollution in the dead zones that run off all the fields of corn and soy that are grown to feed livestock. And we will not stop the hunting of wolves and other predators.
Now, organic farming is one major positive step in the right direction, but we need to keep walking. We need to get beyond organics. We need to get to sustainability.
When you take the animal out, well, you also take the greenhouse gas issue out, and you take the food safety issues out, and you take some of the other externalities related to food scarcity. But one thing that's amazing is, I think you put our values back in. You put values like compassion and integrity and kindness, values that are natural to human beings. You put that in. You build that back into the story of our food. And I think as this begins to progress, I think it also helps people to pause before they eat that egg, before they eat that steak, before they eat that chicken nugget, and ask themselves, is that really what they want? Or do they actually want something more?
I had to come to the full conclusion. The only way to sustainably and ethically live on this planet with 7 billion other people is to live an entirely plant-based vegan diet. I decided instead of eating others, to eat for others. At first, like these environmental groups, I was afraid of what it'd mean to change, but now I embrace it. All this talk about sustainability sounded like our planet was on some sort of life support, and I don't want her to simply survive or to sustain, but to thrive. Life today is not about sustainability, it's about thrivability. She's given so much to us for so long, it was time to give back. 108% of everything we have. It felt good. It was in alignment.
And we see this movement not just about providing cheaper and expensive food that everyone can have, but also a spiritual move. A move towards understanding who we really are and how we can really connect to each other.
Do what you can do as well as you can do it every day of your life, and you will end up dying one of the happiest individuals that ever died.
We become part of a gathering momentum of other people that's happening. This is really what's happening. This is the news.
Selflessness is a nice way to be. It has all these benefits for yourself as well as the planet and other people. It's a beautiful way to live. Ecologically, it just feels better.
This is about massively transforming how our society eats because it's a necessity.
It's acting on what we know and acting kindly and gently on the whole planet and with other people to accomplish the goals of living better. We can do it, but we have to choose to do it. You can change the world. You must change the world.